Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Quarbit, your host today for Europa Universalis 4, and I hope you're all having a great day being world conquerors. Or rather, for some of you, welcome to a beginner conqueror's guide, because today we'll be talking about the basics of colonization mechanics in EU4. This was a request submitted on one of my question threads on the EU4 subreddit, so if you have any ideas or want to see any guides in particular, don't forget to follow my Reddit account at u/Corbit_gaming to catch the next poll. And with that out of the way, let's hop into the colonization mechanics and what they provide for your country, as well as what countries should you try to colonize as, and where to colonize for the best benefits. Colonization is one of the base aspects in EU4, as it's a guaranteed occurrence in any regular EU4 game. There are many reasons to colonize for a lot of nations. Primarily, they provide money, trade, and force limit. Not to mention that as of the most recent patches, colonial nations will now help out a lot more in your continental wars as well, sending their navies and armies overseas. A colonial nation with 10 or more cities will also provide you a free merchant to steer trade from their node with, or you can simply use it basically anywhere you want if it's not necessary in their node, like in Brazil. To begin colonizing, you'll need a colonist, some uncolonized provinces, and at least 2 ducats per month. You'll also need to have discovered the uncolonized provinces using the Quest for the New World idea you received from the beginning of the Exploration Idea group, and they have to fit within your colonial range. Colonial range is also a map mode, so it's quite easy to check for provinces within that range. Discovering new lands, also known as uncovering terra incognita, can be done different ways depending on the DLC you have. Either way, assign an explorer to at least 3 lightships. If you have El Dorado, you can simply send them on a mission to go uncover areas automatically. If not, you'll have to manually move your lightships through terra incognita and manage attrition yourself. To colonize, simply click on the desired uncolonized province and hit the Send Colonist button. This will slowly set up a colony over the span of several years. The rate at which a colony grows is dependent on your global settler increase stat, which starts off as a default of 25. It takes 1,000 settlers to complete a colony, so yes, you can tell it takes quite a while. It's also important to note that this can be changed based on ideas, traditions, and terrain modifiers. Portugal also gets a unique bonus of plus 50 global settler increase with their age bonus from the Age of Discovery. It can also change depending on your native policy. The 3 options you're faced with are generally just preference, to be completely honest, and you can change them later whenever you want for the cost of 1 stability. Personally, I like to go with native trading, since there's a 50% increased modifier of getting native assimilation. A lot of people generally also like to go with native repression at the very beginning because of the early game colonization speed bonus, but it also requires more attention since natives rise up a lot more frequently. And finally, there's the option that's usually picked a lot less, native coexistence. This means no native uprisings whatsoever, but you pretty much get no good bonuses out of it. Again though, it is 100% completely up to preference. When colonizing in the New World and you have Golden Century enabled, you also have the choice to Expel Minorities, which improves the chance of increased settler growth, as well as increases the final development of the province once it's done. It also rids the province you expelled from of that culture and religion, replacing it with your own base culture and true faith. Be careful though, because there's a good chance that your colonial nation might adopt the religion and culture of the minorities you've expelled and spread them both. The culture bit doesn't matter that much, but having different religion gives a small negative opinion modifier. And when you're looking to colonize provinces in a colonial region, it's best to aim for things such as estuaries and natural harbors. These natural harbors will turn into centers of trade once they're colonized, and provide heavy trading bonuses. Now, let's talk about what nations get the most benefits from colonizing, and what countries should make an attempt at getting some land in the New World. It's kind of hard to get into what countries should colonize without getting really that far into how trade works, but it's mostly based on how your collecting node is situated and how far away the colonial nodes are. The way that nodes connect to each other also matters a ton. So let's start with a really basic example like Castile. Sevilla connects to the Ivory Coast and the Caribbean for colonial trade. The Caribbean is the center of trade exported from the New World, so taking control of that gives you tons of options as well as lots of money. And from there, it's super easy to go on and colonize areas that have nodes connecting up to the Caribbean, since the trade will be relayed over to Sevilla. The Ivory Coast has the highest potential in African trade, so Castile should probably go and colonize the Gold Coast and the Cape Coast, since they both have very good trade modifiers. And you should probably go out and invade some African tribes that hold land with trade modifiers. That should give you enough trade to get a pretty damn decent income. Now, when it comes to colonial nations, they'll end up giving you a lump sum of money per month anyway, so even having colonial nations that don't have any connection to your capital through trade can be advantageous. For instance, if you want to cut down the Inca and replace them with a Peru colony, they'll end up giving you a large amount of silver and gold every few months, which can often add up to a few hundred ducats. Same thing for Mexico, since both of these areas have lots of gold and silver mines. But when it comes to colonies and trading settlements like in India and Africa, the only benefits you'll really be seeing is from trade companies, so you need to make sure that you have some sort of connection through dominating nodes downstream. For instance, it would be a little bit foolish to go right for trade in India without first making sure you have a pretty decent setup in Zanzibar, the Cape of Good Hope, and the Ivory Coast. Let's try a little bit more of a difficult example that beginning players probably wouldn't think of, like as Congo. Congo is a popular African nation since you can get the African Power achievement from it. So how would a player playing as Congo take advantage of colonization? Well, Congo is really close to both South America and the Ivory Coast, meaning that colonizing Brazil and taking over the Ivory Coast makes for a really good strategy for income. It also allows what would normally be a hindrance to become your advantage, since discovering the New World gives you a shot at being the country that spawns colonialism. And working backwards, Congo can also later on expand into Indonesia and India to push trade towards Zanzibar and around the coast towards the Ivory Coast. Trade companies themselves also give direct bonuses to trade, so you'll want to set them up starting with trade hubs like estuaries and centers of trade, and then improving them through the little drop-down menu in the States menu. So when you're asking yourself, should I go for colonization for my nation, you're really asking yourself two questions. 1, should I go for the New World? And 2, should I go for trade companies? If you're certain you can make your way over to the New World by the time the Age of Discovery is over for the chance of colonialism spawning, then you probably should get colonial nations. Many non-European countries also fit within this criteria, like Japan, Korea, Ming, and even countries in Southeast Asia like Malacca. And when it comes to trade companies, you have to keep in mind that you can't create trade companies on the same continent as your capital. So African countries can't create trade companies in Africa, but they can in Asia. And Asia pretty much draws a short straw since the majority of trade doesn't really push towards that direction from anywhere. But if you technically think about it this way, Asia also has all the things that people want to trade for, so you have that going for you at least. It technically means that you have all the production and the goods which are highly valued. That appears to be all we'll get into for today, since this is the basic guide for colonization. I've given you the essentials, and there is no doubt you'll be discovering a lot of stuff for yourself as well. There are tons of intricacies for colonization that exist, which I definitely didn't cover today. So, if you want to see the most unnecessarily detailed guide on colonization, let me know in the comments down below, because getting into the nitty-gritty and dealing with numbers is what I love about making videos. So, I hope you learned something today, and if you did, don't forget to drop a like to help out not only my constant need for approval, but the good old algorithm itself too. And of course, for more EU4 guides and other content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to help support the channel. This is Quarbit signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day.